The following program on KROC is sponsored and paid for by Meshbesher and Spence.
The Andrew Davick joins us in studio.
I'm in a suit, too.
Yes, you are.
Wow.
Purple tie. Is that a power tie?
Looking good, Mr.
I don't know if it's a power tie. I wanted to wear a bow tie today, but I'm going to be honest. It requires my wife's assistance to get it tied.
You know, Zach is more of a bow tie kind of guy. I'd have to see you in the bow tie to see if you could pull it off.
The beard and the bow tie. It's
I
kind
don't
of
know.
a contradictory thing, I suppose.
There's a lot under the chin.
But I appreciate you wanting to give it a try.
I do like it.
I'll look forward to that.
Do you have a class or certain types of ties to not wear? I guess you wouldn't want to wear one with a clown on it.
Yeah, probably wouldn't go with a clown.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go with a golden gopher tie during this basketball season, you know. If the Vikings are doing well, you can go with a Viking tie.
What about the bow ties that spin? You know,
It's probably
or
not a
they're
good idea
wooden.
either.
The
would
wooden
probably-
ones. Those are kind of what the hipsters wear now. Is the
But you know
wooden
what?
bow tie?
I don't think that's what we were here to talk about today,
right,
is it?
Right.
Well, I don't know. I mean, sometimes appearance in the courtroom is important if you're in front of a jury.
It's always
you know?
very important. You don't want to be on the defensive right off the bat just by walking in the door.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to offend
Mohawks
anyone.
don't go well when you're an attorney.
No, you don't want to wear an Iowa tie in Minnesota.
No.
Yeah.
Or
Strategy.
Or a Packer tie. From opening a file to either settlement or trial.
Yeah, kind of the process.
That's a
so,
rhyme.
A timeline.
A timeline.
Yeah.
What happens in a case? I can, of course, speak more to the civil side than the criminal side. That would be more Zach's realm.
Okay.
But, we always tell clients it's definitely a process from the time that your
Patience.
accident happens.
Be patient.
Absolutely. Got to be patient. In a typical auto accident case, it may take 18 months to 3 years or more. It really just depends on a lot of different factors from, what's happening with your injuries to the court system to, other things that come up during a case, other injuries or, issues, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I have a friend who had a traumatic brain injury, and it's 3 years. She just last month or 2 months ago, again, wrestling with the insurance company.
Yeah, and early on, so much of it is that initial interaction with the different insurance companies, whether it's your own insurance company and your no-fault claim or the liability claim against the at-fault driver's company. It's a lot of treatment and providing information and making sure that the insurance companies have the information they need to properly reserve their file, so to speak, make sure that they have the funds available when the time comes. Insurance companies have a process they have to go through to make sure they have sufficient funds to cover all claims that currently exist in their system.
Is this something that's relatively new, the length? I mean, is this back in, 20, 30 years ago, or is it because of the onslaught of fraud that insurance companies are that much more skeptical about any claim that comes their way?
Yeah, I think it takes longer now than even when I started practicing in 2003. The claims seem to take a little bit longer. Part of that is the burden on the court system. The judges do a good job of trying to move things forward to the best of their ability, but they oftentimes have, pretty tremendous schedules in terms of the criminal caseload that's out there. In a criminal case, if you commit a crime, you have a right to demand a speedy trial. So, they can't keep you locked up indefinitely without having your case heard by a jury or judge. And what the end result of that is oftentimes civil cases have to take a back seat simply because there isn't time in the court system to be able to process those cases. I can't go to a judge and say I demand a speedy trial in an auto accident case. I would get looked at cross-eyed.
Which is unfortunate because in a lot of those situations, someone's been injured and the medical bills are accruing. I mean, not to say that the criminal issue isn't a big deal, but that can really put a strain on some families to not have that money. Yeah,
Doctors and hospitals aren't necessarily going to wait 3-4 years for payment.
Yep, they're not always the most patient. The No-Fault Act, when it was created in Minnesota, was supposed to address some of that in auto accidents where you have benefits from your own policy of insurance. You have $20,000 in medical. And then you have wage benefits that forever were $250 a week, have recently, as of January 1 of last year, been raised to $500 a week. But the reality is that for most families, that still doesn't cut it. And so even though it's supposed to provide a short-term benefit to try to get you through the most difficult times of a case, it's really insufficient. And so when you have these cases that take a longer period of time, 2 or 3 years, it can create, as Tracy said, pretty tremendous strain on families in terms of being able to, pay their bills and get things taken care of.
And most of them, in the case of a workman's comp type of thing, that's a legitimate claim. If it's dragged out, it's that much more expensive for the insurance company. I would think that they would want to look into it and see if this is a legitimate claim. Let's get rid of it right away. We'll end up saving money in the long run. Yeah,
potentially. The insurance companies ultimately have a case. In the work comp setting, obviously, you typically have a work comp defense lawyer on the other side. In those settings, they're paying, obviously, that defense lawyer to defend the case, which increases the cost of holding onto that file. In our world, when we're dealing with the adjusters, those adjusters are going to be paid regardless if they have 50 or 100 cases. So there isn't a lot of costs driven with respect to the insurance company until you put the case into litigation. Once you have it in the court system and the insurance company's got to hire a defense lawyer for the person who's at fault for what happened, those costs do begin to rise. I mean, those defense lawyers aren't cheap. They're charging by the hour. And so, oftentimes we'll try to approach the insurance companies and say, well, look at what potentially you're going to spend to defend this case. Why can't we work to try to get it done now and save those costs on the back end?
What's the percentage of cases that end up being settled as opposed to going to trial?
I would say 80 to 85% of cases settle without ever having to be put into the court system. Of that, 15 to 20% that end up in the court system, I would say 5 to 10% end up actually going to trial. So it's pretty rare. I mean, most of the time you can get the claim resolved. Typically, if a case ends up all the way at trial, there are issues with the case, whether it's from the defense perspective or the plaintiff perspective. When you've got a case that's fairly clean, where there aren't a lot of issues, it's rare that those cases end up seeing a jury determination. They typically get resolved. And
it's rarely these cases are ever dropped.
Correct. Yeah, most of them end up getting resolved at some point in time, unless the facts are such that a recovery is not possible.
Yeah, but again, patience is the key. Don't expect it to be resolved in any short time. That's for sure.
It takes time for sure.
If anybody needs a good attorney and they want to get a hold of you at Meshbesher Spence, how do they do that?
Give us a call, 1-800-845-1021 or 507-280-8090.
I have found an online tutorial for you how to tie your own bow tie. So good luck with that.
Email that
to me. Here he goes. Turn your tie into a bow tie.
Yay!
It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Andrew Davick from Meshbesher Spence.